Welcome to the Clay Edwards Show. More adrenaline.
You know, it's a pretty interesting time to be alive. What's the saying that made the times you live in be interesting? We have accomplished that.
And more testosterone for your morning drive.
But when you know you've got a problem, how about tell people and be honest? What's going on?
Going to war on cancel culture and bringing the spotlight on issues and topics from around the city of Jackson.
I feel like Jackson, Mississippi.
No one else wants to talk about.
The whole system is corrupt and evil. It's unreal, and they don't care, and everybody knows that. It's just sad.
And fights for the soul of America.
I'm going to need y'all to explain to me what a positive solution is, because you positive solutions only people have been in charge for a while now, and I'm not seeing too many positive solutions.
You never met a mother quite like me.
Strap in, turn up the volume, and get ready, Jackson, for unfiltered, no sugar added talk radio. Broadcasting live from the Generator Power Solutions studio. It's award-winning podcaster Clay Edwards.
All right, good morning, Jackson, Mississippi, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Clay Edwards Show, live in the Generator Power Solutions studio at the lovely Cotton Exchange Plaza out here in Flora, Mississippi. And I have a full complimentary of co-host with me this morning. I've got to my left, Ms. Therese Apel with
Hi, everybody.
Darkhorse Press. I've got Chief Dean Scott from the Pearl Police Department sitting across from me in the Kim Wade chair.
Morning.
What's going on, guys?
Just getting the day kicked off. How about you?
Man, same here. I'm off work today.
Well, I see you. So you're not that off work, are you?
No. Look, I was telling my wife, I said, man, look, I'm going to get to a point where one day I'm going to have to just pre-record a show at home and load it in the system so I can not get up at 5 a.m. and drive to Flora, on my day off.
There you
go. I was like, but, it's the least I can do, man. This is what I asked for, and I'm getting it, so I'm going to take advantage of the situation within the opportunity of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you mentioned something the other day that I think we can all identify with, and I think that most of our listeners can too. You had something on Facebook about, like, I just need a break. Yeah. And I was like, you have to take those breaks. So, it's like, I think in the world that we're all in right now, whether it's about news or whether it's about the constant fight that you guys have on the streets, Chief, it's like there has to come a time where you're cool with just being like, I'm not getting up this morning. Like just for a minute.
Man, look, I've been, like I said on that post, I have been all gas, no breaks since COVID hit. Early March, we took the girls to a Post Malone concert in Memphis. We came home. They never went back to school. Spring break started that week. When we got back that Sunday, they started spring break. Within that week, they decided that they weren't going to let kids go back to school. And that's when I started getting mad. And said, where's the go live button on my phone? And I started raising hell, and here I am. I get 40 hours of personal time a year for work.
Right.
At the end of the year, they said, Clay, you have 39 hours left. I was like, well, there's only 12 hours left in the year. Thanks for telling me. But it's just, I wanted to be that. I wanted to be the guy that set the example. To let's work through this. I don't know if I got sick. I don't know if I had COVID. I wasn't going to find out. I didn't want a 2-week vacation. I do now.
I got that 2-week vacation, and it was so bad I couldn't get off the couch. So while I probably needed to get over the COVID, that was the worst 2-week vacation I ever had.
We had to deal with, I think our biggest obstacle was kind of like you, Clay, my little girl, special needs, and they did spring break, and when school ended, for the break, they didn't go back. So then you become a home teacher for a special needs child. It is a tad overwhelming, and you appreciate your teachers more and more.
Oh, no doubt. Look, I guess we're supposed to, charge people for advertising here. That's how we pay the bills. But I have to commend Bill Myers and the crew over at Hillcrest. My daughter finished up her senior year there, so 2020 was her senior year. Right. And they fought like hell, and they had a graduation. Because you couldn't do it in Jackson, right, but they did it in Richland,
right,
behind one of the churches there. I think that whatever that big First Baptist church, whatever it is in Richland,
right there on 49.
Yep, had it on a trailer right there. And was it the most ideal situation? No, but they went above and beyond against all odds to make sure those kids at least had that. Right. And that meant the world to me. And I will box anybody to defend Bill Myers and Hillcrest for what they did.
Well, I think a lot of folks did stuff like that. That's just a memorable time in kids' lives, you know, for the rest of their lives. And a lot of kids missed out, you know. I think it hurt your sports players. It hurt, you know, a lot of feelings, especially, you know, with homecomings and
just
proms
to say
and
that.
stuff like that. Things they'll never get back.
Yeah, you know, I didn't even consider didn't think my daughter was interested so much in the homecoming and the prom and stuff like that. She's kind of a loner, a lot like I was. Her and her sister stick very close together. They're also best friends. And, but I think when it got taken from her, she wanted it more. And we even tried to put together a thing where we had like the lost homecoming kind of deal. But, man, it was just all the red tape and nobody wanted to do it right. I was like, well, I'm not going to do anything where somebody has to wear face masks and do all this nonsense.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out later in life. I never went to a homecoming or a prom, and I came out all right.
If
you call this all right.
Well, you know, you're on this side of bars, not on the other side, so I think you did all right, man.
Any day above ground is a good day, right?
Hey, I know. Hey, speaking of bars and not the kind you get spirits at, the internet caught a fire yesterday with the talks of Hinds County potentially housing misdemeanor offenders at the Metrocenter for up to 72 hours. I posted a screenshot of the story to my Save Jackson Instagram, and I should never be surprised, but sometimes just the utter stupidity of things.
I couldn't even read it, Clay. I got to be honest. There are people out there that are dumber than, I mean, bricks are dumb, and then there's these people
that comment on the Save Jackson Instagram page.
Yes.
And look, it's the very people. First off, I'm a racist because I think that there should be another jail, that we should actually have a jail
Let's
in
clarify
Jackson.
for those who just tuned in. You're being called a racist.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So we post this, and I'm like, I think this is a great idea. And I work right across the street from it. You know, there's nothing else going on over there. They already have a police department somewhat in there, you know, using one of those big anchor locations to process and house misdemeanor crimes. It seems like a good fit. I mean, what else are you going to do with it at this point? A mall is not going to work there.
In the 80s, it was a good daycare, so maybe it'll make a good jail.
I was going to ask you about that. Having grown up in South Jackson, you know, did you ever think that the day would come that if I told you 25 years ago that they're going to turn the mall into the Metro into a jail, you know?
Like I said, in the 80s, it was a good drop-off daycare for a lot of mamas. I know that because I was one of them.
Yeah.
My roll of quarters at Diamond Gems.
Yeah. Aladdin's Castle.
Oh, man. But look, you know, the thing that blew me away about some of the replies, and I'm going to do a whole nother podcast where I can break it down and pull it up on the screen at some point in time today, but was the people telling, we don't want this in our neighborhoods. First off, there's not a neighborhood over there.
Right.
It's just a big empty plot of land and a couple of abandoned buildings. You know, but it's your neighborhood that would benefit the most from it, from catching misdemeanors, catching folks at a earlier stage in their crime committing. I have a theory that gateway crimes are just like gateway drugs. If I break in a car and I get away with it, I may steal the car next time.
Yep.
You know, if I rob somebody and get away with it, I may carjack them and kill them next time or something like that. You'd think you escalate up. I don't think that murder, you know, capital murder and robbery is your first foray into crime. I'm not saying that doesn't happen because I know things do, but
and then those are considered crimes of passion. And I mean, in first-time offense cases like that,
yeah,
which you know they did it once, they never did it again. But I'm with you, Clay. I mean, basically what they're going to do is make a receiving center, low risk situations, and I think since COVID, the problem we've been faced with, and you know, Sheriff Vance is faced with, James Davis is faced with, myself included, being right there, neighbor city, it has become a situation because of COVID that there is no penalty for misdemeanor crimes.
Yeah.
And it's become sad, and it's what we've, you know, allowed it to become. And, you know, it's one of those things, by health reasons, we had to halt more or less catch and release. And you know, I think Therese says it best, you know, in her stuff on the web, that we're paying the cost for it now.
Yeah.
But, you know, when there's no penalty and no recourse for anything that happens, you're seeing, you know, when national news were watching yesterday, you know, let them loot Come on now.
Did y'all
Yeah.
see? Yeah, absolutely.
But you can't say don't let them loot.
Yeah, correct. That's
Then you're
not
in
politically
trouble.
correct.
Right.
I mean, look, I know we're approaching the end times. If you're spiritual on any whatsoever level, you have to look at this and say this is as close as we've ever been in our lifetimes.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think things come. I think what we're dealing with, and I do agree with you, but I think it's kind of like this situation is kind of like fashion, because if you look back, especially with a reporter here in the room,
Yep.
and she has access to all that, and I'm not a computer guy, but you can go online. I mean, to me, this is the '60s repeating itself.
And that's a good point, because I do think that, and I don't know that, I mean, obviously I wasn't born in the 60s, but I think what you look at is this permissiveness across the board in society. Like, I mean, and I realize that I try to stay away from politics, but what I'm about to say may give me some political blowback. But, we say, take all the drugs you want. It's okay. It's your body. Do what you need to your own body. And theoretically, sure, you want to go work out 200 hours a week. You want to go, drink all you want, whatever. As long as you're not hurting somebody else, I get that argument. But on the other hand, there is a part of me that's like, but we do things to try and maintain, order and to maintain our species, and allowing us to get as permissive and self-destructive as we want to, as we're inclined as individuals. That's a recipe for disaster, because we all go through those phases where it's like, all right, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm going to go do something really stupid. Well, there are people that live like that constantly. Yeah. And that's what we're protected against in a lot of cases.
And that's, I mean, you look back, you look at the loot and the riots in the 60s. To me, it's history repeating itself.
Yep.
And they always say, oh, fashion always comes full circle. This is history repeating itself. When the stock market crashed in the 20s, you had riots, and it was just a different time. But I think it comes full circle and repeats itself. And I think it's just one of those waves that we have to ride. Yeah,
it's cyclical. I mean, I do. I'll go back and watch. I've been watching a lot of the stuff from, I guess it would be 61 from the Freedom Riders and all that. We've come on the 60th anniversary of that, and it's like we're repeating a lot of that again, and the violence and the social unrest and this, that, and the other. And I'm guessing that we live in a 24-hour news, and not just a 24-hour news cycle now. We live in an immediate
22nd news cycle.
Let me tell you, when you're trying to be the news by yourself, it is a 48-hour-a-day news cycle.
And I think if the platforms that we have now were available then, it would be the same thing.
Yeah. When we come back from the break, I want to pick back up there, because I saw something that happened in Chicago over the weekend that I just heartbreaking. And I want to talk about that. You're listening to the Clay Edwards Show. I've got Therese Apel and Dean Scott in the studio with me. We'll be right back here on 103.9 WYAB. All right, welcome back to the Clay Edwards Show, Big Tuesday edition here in the Generator Power Solutions studio. I am joined by Therese Apel with Darkhorse Press and Chief Dean Scott from the Pearl Police Department. And this segment is brought to you by my good buddies out at Black Axe's Throwing Club. Check out Central Mississippi's only axe throwing clubs at their Fannin Mart location in Brandon or in Pearl at the outlets of Mississippi. You can schedule an axe throwing lane today online at blackaxes.ms.com. And out there at the Pearl location was actually the scene of a crime. Mayor Jake Wyndham beat me pretty bad at a game of axe throwing.
Axe murder.
It was axe murder. And I hadn't quite got over that yet. It was the big South Jackson versus Pearl axe throwing fundraising event. At least we raised some money for Fifth Squad. I don't know if y'all listened to yesterday's show. I had the guys from Fifth Squad on. They're a local veterans charity that focus on Mississippi veterans in need versus the national stuff. Right. And they're doing a big event in Pearl this Saturday night at Braves with the Braves and all. So we had them on here promoting it, man. I'm telling you what, that's one of the things. I mean, of course, we all love kids and doing stuff for the Children's Hospital. There's something about being able to help our local veterans that really gets my blood flowing. And we're trying to do what we can to make that the biggest event possible.
To me, the important thing about about that, as well as helping, our law enforcement, our firefighters, that kind of thing, is that you have this world you live in where everybody gets you, and where, what matters is your courage and, your ability to lay down your life, or, your safety, just whatever, to put yourself on the line. And then you have to assimilate into a real world that has no idea what that's like. And so you're all by yourself.
And all that. I couldn't imagine. Dean, were you ever in the military?
No, I wasn't.
Just jump straight into law enforcement?
Yeah.
How long are you in now? Almost 25 years?
No,
30?
I'm going into my 31st.
31st, man. That's wild. Where'd you start at?
Started dispatching in Flowwood when I was 20 years old.
No kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
when everything was right there on Lakeland, it was all woods.
I know, man. It is so crazy. My aunt and uncles, well, my mama's whole side of the family basically lived up in Pisgah, Sand Hill, up that area. So we would go up there for holidays. And
it seemed like it took forever to get there.
2 lanes, Yep.
Yep.
I was like, it took forever. That was the country. I'm like, man, we're going on a road trip. Grew up in Jackson, so left the city and go to the country. And now it's all city all the way there.
Yeah, so you feel like it's just a little 10-minute commute. And I remember in Flowwood when I was a kid, my mom raised me by herself. We would go to the drive-in. It was actually where the elementary school is now in Flowwood.
Oh, wow.
That was the last drive-in around there. Yeah, Old Fannin Road.
Yeah, it is. I vaguely remember that. We used to, when I first got my license, it was already closed at that point. Nothing but the screens were left. But I got on this kick a while back of going and finding all the old locations of drive-ins in Jackson, popping the drone up and looking at the land, because you really can't see much. But there are a few where you can see where the land is still scarred.
The Terrace Road type.
Yeah.
And there was right there off West Haven.
That's the one that's still left.
The parking lot. You can still see where it was.
And there's actually a building, maybe a film house or something still on it, just a brick structure. But it's kind of neat. A lot of history there. And there was another one right there, basically where Borden's and Mart 51 is, over on 80 by the abandoned GE building. But man, that's something I wish that would have come back because of COVID, was drive-in theaters. Like, hey, you know what? This seems like a good time to reintroduce this. But I think we're just too far out of the. We're too deep into streaming, and people being able to just do it at their house.
Yeah, you can just set up your phone on your dashboard. And
Your living room is your drive-in theater now.
Yeah. Hey, I miss the video store at McDowell Square.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, man.
I saw a meme the other day that was saying, today's kids will never know what it's like to go to Blockbuster and find your favorite movie, but there are no movies stacked behind it. You remember how you would go and you'd be like, oh, there it is. And then you'd look and everybody had them, and you were you couldn't until next time. So you had to find some second-rate movie that you didn't want to watch.
When I went to Hines, I worked at the video store there in McDowell. And it was neat to watch all the movies before everybody else did.
Perks.
Yeah. You get 3 copies, and they were reserved for the next, 4
Y'all,
months.
I feel like my grandparents.
Back in my day.
Hey, look, it was so bad. We would rent VCR machines so people could get the whole deal and take it.
I remember that. And then Blockbuster got to where it was selling like the bucket. They give you a bucket and a thing of microwave popcorn in it, So at least you got that bucket too.
Oh, yeah. It's like you were at the movies.
My best friend in high school, he worked at a movie store in Hazelhurst, and y'all are talking about the big city stuff that's changed. Hazelhurst looks mostly the same. But so I would go and just sit with him while he would, work at the movie store. And there was this poster, and we all know the poster now, but it was before it was well known, of Tombstone, where the guys
hanging in my office right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And so they're walking down the street with all that fire behind them. And I was like, I want that. As soon as they take it down, I want that. To this day, I'm still mad at him because I never got that poster. But now you can get it anywhere. So,
I know. I ordered, I got me and my buddy Jake Wimberly that does ESPN radio here in Jackson. We're both big Rocky IV fans. and I got us both. I guess your phone hears you talking. We went to San Antonio a couple years ago to see Gardner Minshew play his last college game. And we were talking about Rocky IV, and they saying, my phone, Rocky IV movie posters. I'm like, you know what? I ordered us both one, and I found mine the other. Jake's got his hanging in his office at the other studio, and I found mine in a box the other day. I was like, I really need to get this hung up and put behind my little set I got at the house. I was like, it was a good conversation. But I love them 80s movie posters. Yeah. We went to that Civil War relic show in Brandon last weekend, and somebody had an original Gone with the Wind movie poster, like a big one. Yeah. I wanted $3,500 for it. I sent it to my wife, as a diehard Gone with the Wind fan. Her and her grandmother used to watch it together, so it's like her thing. I sent her a picture of it. I was like, I think I just maxed out the Amex. She's like, no, you didn't.
A copy will be fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, no, I specifically left it at home. I threw the Amex in the safe at the house. I took $40 to the gun show, or whatever you want to call it, show with me. Ended up having to borrow $20 from Fred Shanks to buy a slapjack. It's like I wanted something. But before we went to the break, we were talking about just kind of chaos in the streets and stuff. And there was an incident in Chicago over the weekend. I guess it was Puerto Rican Day or something like that.
Their national holiday.
Yeah, it was a national holiday there, and this couple was riding through an intersection, hadn't done anything, and they got snatched. They had a mistake of having a red, white, and blue flag flying that I'm guessing some idiots thought
Their
was
national flag.
Yeah, thought was our national flag and thought that was disrespectful. And they snatched them. I'm trying to make sense of it anyway, and I'm guessing that's probably why they did it. They were riding their ATVs on the streets. Y'all know how I feel about that. And snatched them out of the car and loaded them full of lead right there at an intersection, caught on in high def. Yeah. And is that where we're at? Have we reached? I feel like I'm watching something in Bosnia.
Yeah, I agree, Clay.
Yeah.
I think we've just gotten to a point to where nationally or from the, and I think it all starts at the top with our leadership. When that is, and I don't know any other way to say it. Therese, you feel free to correct me. When those actions are condoned, because they pretty much are. If you feel free to do that, you're pretty confident that there's not going to be any, repercussions.
When we're turning trash into martyrs.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's.
I mean, that's garbage. That's an animalistic, mentality. And like you said, that's third world garbage.
Yep. It's the same people that are doing that are the same ones that are complaining about the idea of the Metrocenter being turned into a misdemeanor holding facility. It's like anything that involves crime fighting is evil.
Yeah.
I don't.
And to me, in our region, and I think Therese would, in this region of the United States, your majority of people are pro law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, let me make that clear.
Yeah.
They really are. They appreciate the efforts. They appreciate what we do. They understand the need for being able to go to bed and feel safe. But, like you just said, you're going to have opponents of anything that tries to do just that, make people feel safe, make people feel like they can lay down and not have the fear of crime overwhelming them. Because they believe chaos and disorder is the way to live. And anybody that's gotten to that mentality, you're never going to get them back.
Well, I see a lot of people with my Save Jackson platform,
right.
and then growing up in Jackson and staying as long as I did. There's so many people who this is all they know. They've grown up in the chaos. They don't know that it doesn't have to be like this.
No.
It's just, I mean, and you would think, well, surely this isn't right. Like there has to be something that clicks somewhere along the way where you say, the other half seems to be living all right. Why am I doing this? Why am I stuck in this cycle of poverty and violence and drugs and destruction?
We talked about it off the air. Last week I attended the Chiefs Conference for the state of Mississippi. And Chief Davis in Jackson spoke for a minute, and we had a pastor that was speaking on their efforts, very pro-law enforcement, and I think that goes all hand in hand. But he asked James to speak for a minute. James and I have been friends for over 2 decades now.
We're talking about JPD, Chief James Davis. Okay.
Chief Davis. He spoke, and I think he said it best. When you live a life that you don't have God in your life, you don't have a life. You live day for day. You have no future. All you have is your past. And when you have that mentality, just like what we talked about in Chicago, you're going to have what we have right now.
Yeah. I went to you're 100% right. And there's other people inside the community who are starting to say that. We went to the memorial for
when you're condemned for believing in God.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, we went to the memorial for Kennedy Hobbs, the girl that girl that graduated and got killed the same day. At the footsteps of JPD headquarters, and I ran into an old club DJ that I know that was doing some digital stuff there, and we just got to talking, and I was like, man, what do you? He's like, I feel partly responsible for playing the music that encourages this type of behavior. He's like, I don't do that no more. He's like, but the one thing, Clay, we have not tried, and I was really blown away to hear him say this, probably about like people that used to know me, hearing me say it.
Yeah.
But he said, we haven't tried God.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, to hear this guy telling me this, and me being like, yeah, it just tells you that growing up does something for you, but that it's hitting home to some people,
Well, and that brings up for me, I think we've talked about it on this show, but if not, I've definitely talked about it other places. Years ago, when Tony Yarber was mayor, he got up, and this is a message not just to white churches, but also to black churches. To me, it's a message to the church, to Jesus's church. Tony Yarber said, all you white churches, in the suburbs, you've got mission fields. You're sending people overseas. You're trying to save these people in these third world countries, and that's honorable. But what about Jackson? Why can't we make Jackson our mission field? Because what we have here is a place where these people are overwhelmed with trauma. I mean, from day one, all they know is their family and friends getting killed. They live this life. They hear the music. They're stuck in the poverty situations, that kind of thing. And so it perpetuates itself. Why doesn't the church intervene? What is the fear?
I've been saying the same thing. I've beat that drum, and I don't make any friends when I do it. Jackson is a third world country in essence. It's in your backyard. It directly affects you. Look, I know they need water wells in Guatemala and Ethiopia and this, that, and the other.
We need them in Jackson too.
But need them in Jackson too. I mean, it irks me when I tithe. I specifically put it to like Celebrate Recovery or something like that instead of the general. I don't want my money going overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Look, we got to take a break real quick. You're listening to the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back here on 103.9 WYAB. To the Clay Edwards Show here on 103.9.
Sorry, we're over here having a side conversation.
WYAB.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
No.
sorry.
Yeah, hey, look, man, that's all this is a conversation. I sometimes I question. I'm like, I really think like long form, just podcast conversations are probably what suits my style best. But radio gives you the biggest platform,
Right?
So I try to kind of mold it all in and put it together. But I would love to be able to have what we talk about off the air. It's just a constant flowing conversation.
We usually say some awesome stuff off the air.
Chip Matthews was on here with me a couple of weeks ago, and we were getting ready to talk. He said, no, don't talk off the air. He said, just whatever you're about to say, save it. I'm like, but I won't remember.
Yeah.
I can't
Just
save
let me
it.
refer back to it.
Right.
Exactly. Well, look, man, we're here in the Generator Power Solutions studio. If you guys want to call in and you can behave yourselves, you can reach us on the Black Axis Throwing Club phone line at 601-879-0002.
And if you can't behave yourself, sorry, I didn't mean to overlap that. If you can't behave yourself, Chief Scott is very large, and he can make you behave.
And look, that did not take long. We have a call. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, man, I just had a thought, and it's a thought that I don't know that I can support because I haven't really thought about it enough. But you're talking about helping Jackson as opposed to countries around the world. I have this nagging concern that churches and wealthy individuals, charitable organizations could spend $1 bazillion on a Democrat-run city and get zero results. And if the forces allied against that kind of well-meant effort are just so formidable, and you might take the position, I'm going to spend my charitable money where it can have the most result. That same $1 bazillion overseas could conceivably save lives, many lives. I'm just real pessimistic about being able to have good results in a city like Jackson.
I won't argue your point. I know exactly what you're saying, but I think in this type situation, you would just have to decide to, let's just say you're going to rebuild a house, you just got to go pick a house and rebuild it and not involve the city. I mean, you had to go pick one-on-one scenarios and work on it like that. You have to cut the red tape.
Well, and I think, for the chief being one of us that have seen those streets and the people that live there that are worth saving. Yeah, the government is a nightmare and it's a cluster. But there are people who are very much worth the effort that are not getting it simply because we're not looking at them.
Well, I think the point, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like your point is the concern would be with politics, would your money even go to where it was meant to be? Is that fair to say? Caller?
Well, and I'm thinking, what I'm thinking is I wasn't even thinking about bringing the government into it. I'm just thinking if I had $1 bazillion myself to do outside the government, the lure of the lure that the government has for people is just so enticing. I don't think education. How can we solve the problem of kids in Jackson not getting a good education outside the government? We're not going to get vouchers. We're not going to get school choice. I'm being real pessimistic, but it looks hopeless to me.
Well, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for calling in.
Yep.
We got another caller here on line too. Caller, you're on there.
Yes, I was wondering, why can't you guys, speak to putting economic resources in Jackson as opposed to, to fight the poverty or whatever, the criminal element, like putting money into Jackson, invest into the people of Jackson, as opposed to wanting, a jail built or whatever.
Well, I mean, a jail is for the criminals to protect the people of Jackson. I mean, right now it's just it's free range killing out there. I mean, you got to start catching these criminals at the early phases of criminality, and hopefully a good night in jail, slaps them around a little bit, and they're like, I know that did for me. A couple nights in jail and in a holding cell changed my perspective on how I wanted to live my life.
You turn Metrocenter into a jail, then what happens after that?
Well, it's just a big abandoned building right now. I mean, what else are you going to do with it?
I'm talking about, just say that happens. Then what are you going to do for Jackson to improve? After you turn the Metrocenter into a jail, then what? Well,
then you hope that it has a trickle-down effect, that people know if they commit a crime that there's somewhere for them to go. So you hope that the thought process is that people will commit less crimes if they know there's punishment for said crime.
What about the poverty?
What about what?
The poverty.
Well, people got to start working. I don't have a magic wand. You can't fix it all at one time, but that is a big thing. We do, but look, money likes to feel safe. When money feels safe, it will come back into Jackson and create jobs. Jobs will eliminate poverty. But money's got to feel safe. Money's not going to come to Jackson if it don't feel safe. That's why that's why nothing's going to work at the Metrocenter from a retail perspective. And I'm just using it as an example. It's the same reason money is leaving North Jackson as fast as it can. And that's starting to look like I-55, starting to look like Highway 80.
So why is the money not in Jackson? Why people can't invest into Jackson regardless?
Because money don't feel safe in Jackson. Look what's going on. I mean, if you were going to open up a restaurant, you're going to open it in Jackson, have to worry about not having water for 2 weeks when you can go right over into Rankin County, pay a little bit more, and know that at least you're not going to have business interruption. Hey, look, I appreciate you calling in, brother. We're going to take a break here. Actually, we're not taking a break, but he makes a good point. I understand his frustration. It is frustrating. Why don't people put money in Jackson? But money's going to go where it feels safe. And
and that's why, you have Chamber of Commerce, you have mayors, and that's their job. They are the promoters.
Yeah.
And it nobody's fault. It's been such a decline over time. We talk about the heyday, we talk about the 80s. I mean, just look at the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When the Metro was the premier mall. Prior to that, it was the Jackson Mall. When I was a kid, I remember standing in the front seat of my mom's car and us going to the Jackson Mall on Saturday.
Heck yeah. I remember going with my grandmother when it had been early 80s. I couldn't have been 4 or 5 years old, but I remember going with my grandmother to the Jackson Mall.
And it was nice, but it's just Is it anybody's fault? No, I can't. You can't pin it on one person.
Well, and I think the other thing is too, we've got this perception out there. I was sitting at a bar in Jackson. Yeah, it was right after I'd gotten off work one night, and I just went to this place. I don't know. Now that you mention it. Anyway, long story short, I was sitting there, and there was a woman sitting next to me, and I looked at her, and I just said, "You're not from around here, are you?" And she's like, "No." And I said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "I'm from San Francisco." And I've told the story before.
She had her mask on.
Yeah. But long story short, I've told the story before, and people are like, San Francisco's a dump, too. What's she talking about? But she said, I've grown up watching these movies about the South and about Jackson, and I was expecting when I came here for business to see all these antebellum homes and to see these beautiful people with these manners and everything. She's like, this is not what I expected.
Yeah, The Help's a movie.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I said. I was like, if you're looking at The Help, that's not the way it is anymore, and not that it was good the way it was. I mean, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not who we are.
No.
It's different now.
You know what? We got a caller real quick, but I got a point I want to make about that after this call. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, man, what's going on?
Oh, man, same old thing, different day, brother.
I hear that. Look, your last caller was talking about, asking about jail, how would it help and everything, and I'm calling from experience. I'm 48 years old right now, but when I was 21, 22 years old, I'd gotten my license suspended, and one thing over another. Never did get my license back because I kept driving. And what building a new jail would help is right now we're releasing all these misdemeanors, with a slap on the hand. And I'd moved to Florida, got pulled over for driving with a suspended license. They put my butt in jail for 3 months and 10 days. Put me in maximum security. Let me tell you, since that time, I never got another ticket. I never got pulled over. I straightened my life straight up. It taught me a lesson.
Heck yeah, man.
The problem we're having right now is we're releasing all these small crimes, and we're only keeping the big crimes. Well, by the time they're committing big crimes, they realize, hey, I'm just going to get a slap on the hand if I go over here and do this. So building a new jail would allow us to actually not just give them a slap on the hand, put them in there for about a week or two, show them what it's like, and teach them a lesson. When they get out, they'll get a freaking job and actually contribute to the society and straighten their life up. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, look, if it wasn't for John Cooley throwing me in Hinds County for about 3 or 4 nights for doing basically the same thing, I would probably be dead. But that was enough. And I ended up on house arrest for a year and probation, having to take drug tests and do everything else. Getting in the system saved my life. I'm not saying that I'm the prime example and that's going to happen to everybody. But it worked for me, so I can speak from experience, and it sounds like you can too. Hey, brother, I appreciate you calling in, man. We're up against the break here. Keep listening.
All right, man. Y'all take care of yourself.
All right, thank you. That's what I'm talking about. That goes exactly back to what we talked about at the top of the show.
When people see punishment for their actions, and their personal liberties and their life is interrupted and it's affected.
Yep. You can't measure that. You can't put that on a piece of paper when you're trying to say why you need a jail.
It's going to affect everybody different, like you said.
Yeah.
But when there are repercussions to your actions, it makes a difference.
Yep. All right. You're listening to The Clay Edwards Show. I've got Therese Apel and Dean Scott in studio with me. We'll be right back after this break. All right. We're coming back. We got about a minute here before the top of the hour break. We ran over a few segments there. Great conversation, great callers. I appreciate y'all. One of the callers called in and he was talking about the last caller that said he went to jail in Florida, and that's the thing you can't measure when you talk about the importance of a jail and intervening in a criminal's life at some point and saying, here's the consequences and here's the repercussions. For your actions.
I would say, suspended driver's license. He's really not a criminal. He was breaking the law.
Yeah,
but he was shown that there were actions for his actions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I use the word criminal loosely.
It made a huge difference in his life.
Yep.
And I think that speaks volumes for him and others. You know, that's one person we know that made a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, just imagine how many. I'm another. So look, we're up here on the top of the hour break. We'll see you guys in about 7 minutes right here on the Clay Edwards Show. The Clay Edwards Show. We are live here in the Generator Power Solutions studio, and this segment is brought to you by my buddies over at Watkins Construction and Roofing. A roof repair can cause a lot of stress. Choosing the right roofing company to repair your roof is very important. Most contractors try to convince you that replacement is the only way to go, and that is just not the Watkins way. They believe in an honest assessment that doesn't necessarily mean replacement, and in most cases, all you need is a repair. So whether you have leaky roof, chimney repair, flat roof repair, roof water leak, shingle roof repair, metal roof repair, chimney flashing repair needed, Watkins Construction and Roofing is your go-to roof repair specialist. You can reach them today for a complimentary roof assessment at 601-966-8233 or watkinsconstructioninc.com. And I want to give a special shout out to the crew over there at Watkins Construction and Roofing. They have supplied me with a bunch of tickets to give away to the Mississippi Braves game this weekend to support our friends with Fifth Squad Charity. And follow the Save JXN page, and I will start giving those tickets away today. We're going to give away some family 4-packs. So if you want to take your kids out to a good time Saturday night, let me know. All right. So I'm joined today by Therese Apel and Chief Dean Scott from the Pearl Police Department. What's going on, guys?
About the same.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. About the same as last hour.
Well, I figured you had to reset at the top of the hours, in case you got new listeners.
Right.
But man, we had a great first hour and a couple good calls. So one of the things that we keep going back to is the need for catching. I hate saying the word criminal constantly, but catching folks in crime and bad behavior early on and learning that there's consequences and repercussions for your behavior. And the lack of that leads to like what happened in Chicago over the weekend with folks getting snatched out of their cars, or what we saw back over the summer of love, and neighborhoods getting burned down, businesses getting looted, and all this stuff. And I saw where New York just said nobody's charged. They just did away with all the charges from all that. Yeah. I mean,
it's not hurting anybody's feelings.
If you go through life and you don't think that you can ever get in trouble for anything you do, you're in for a bad life, unless you actually just never get in trouble for it. And I guess you're in for a great life, right. But inevitably you're going to run into that one that's not a social justice warrior, and that is ready to let you know that there's now consequences. You're not on the internet anymore.
Well, and I think just kind of along a different line, but just like yesterday, the lieutenant with Texas DPS. They've watched the border situation when people coming across. We're the only country that there is no wall, no door. You have to come through, get permission. They're coming across. And the lieutenant said yesterday, without the help from Washington, Texas is fixing to take a stand and do something to try to prevent. And I'm proud to see it. Yeah,
I saw where the governor is going to start raising private funds.
Correct. But this was actually a boots on the ground DPS lieutenant that said they've had enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you had to wonder at what point is it enough? Correct. I mean, the militias and stuff at some point are going to say they've had enough, and you're going to have an uprising. I know that you can't say the word militia anymore without it being a bad word.
Yeah.
But America exists because of militia standing up and fighting.
It was founded on militia.
Yeah. I mean, we keep getting away from what got us here, and everything that made America great is somehow now bad.
Correct.
It makes no sense to me. It's like this: what upside down world are we living in?
Yeah. How do you condemn a statue of Abraham Lincoln?
Right.
I mean, come on.
I say, man, now if it's an old person and a statue, it's got to go. It's like no old people statues. Meanwhile, we got a George Floyd statue.
We're making monuments to.
Well, and I want to throw something in here because it's my favorite, dead horse to beat. But honestly, these
your favorite Darkhorse to beat?
Well, no, because it's a dead horse. but yeah, it's like you make the folks that are making these rules and that are allowing these things, and like, no, it's cool that that you're burning people's houses down, that kind of thing. They're sitting in offices somewhere. They're taking campaign donations. They're the ones that are just like, okay, you know what? I like that idea. Let's do it. I dare say if we had more public servants, and I use that term loosely, more decision makers who have been boots on the ground at all, whether it's the military, whether it's police, whether it's, social workers. Like, give me somebody who knows the actual human condition, not who's been pampered and raised by, other politicians and, where's the fancy suit. I don't want to see that in my leader because I don't trust his decisions. His decisions are based on his air-conditioned office where somebody brings him coffee every morning and tells him how great he is. And then every now and then he's got to run for office and, kiss enough butt to get elected. That is my problem with a lot of what's going on the streets, is that the things that are legislating that, the things that are allowing it, come straight from a place that has never seen it firsthand.
Right. No, yeah, exactly right. You see people like Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi and these people who live in these mega mansions telling people to get out there and fight and get in people's faces and do all this. But the second somebody fought and got in their faces.
But they got the Secret Service down there.
It's when we finally do what she says, it's a dang insurrection.
Right.
So it's like, no, it can't be political.
Right.
If you're going to tell people to fight, it can't just fit your narrative.
Well, I would just like to, in politics, I didn't vote for the powers that be, but I do have a serious problem of the double standard, and I go back to Texas, I go back to the border. Why does this vice president get a pass when she becomes irate when she's asked why she has not made a trip? Mike Pence would have been crucified.
Well, here's the deal. They sat there for 2 years asking her and Biden what their favorite ice cream flavor was. And now that they've accomplished their mission and they got them in office, now they're actually having to do their jobs, and they don't know how to react.
Well, no, I think they are doing their jobs. I think they're doing just what they were elected to do by the powers that control them, is just be a face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
honestly.
Well, I was talking about the media actually having to do their job and ask questions. But yeah, you're 100% right. Well, I mean, like now the media's like, well, why aren't you doing this? Like, we can only stick our head in the sand and scream "Orange Man bad" for so long because you've been in there 200 days now, or however long it's been since January 20th, and you're not doing anything. And the rest of the country, this is affecting all of us. These terrible decisions. I got into a personal conflict with myself the other day riding down the road, and I remember.
Up, did you?
Do I?
You didn't stop and beat yourself up.
No.
Was there an altercation?
No.
If so, we need to get you some help.
I won the battle. The voices in my head, and I was going back to. I remember telling Democrats and stuff, or anti-Trump people, you can't pull against the president. Even if you hate him, you have to pull for him to succeed. But
it affects all of us.
It does.
Yeah.
But now I'm looking at what's going on, and I am pulling against this president because if he succeeds, America loses. And I hate to drag y'all into politics, but that's just kind of where I'm at with that. It's if his policies win, we lose. So I catch myself actively pulling against this guy.
I don't think that's even an arguable fact. I mean, or topic. I mean, again, I go back to what we talked about off air. All you have to do, you can't come from the north side because Canada's not letting anybody come from Canada to the United States. But all you've got to do is just walk into the country. At least in the past, it was done secretive. It was covert.
Yeah.
I watched last night when you've got the Coyotes laughing at Texas DPS because they know, hey, if you try to stop, we're going to hurt them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs that what we've come to. And these aren't, granted, now there are, our country, this country was founded on immigrants. My family were immigrants. I'm good with that.
Legal immigration.
That's right.
There's a process.
That's right. Go through the process, do what. But the problem is, and it's already been proven because, law enforcement has had to risk their lives and has caused some very costly situations, as Therese has reported on. There's a lot of bad guys coming over, too. We're not just the land of opportunity for jobs. We're the land of opportunity for guns, drugs, money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the problem we're faced with.
Yeah, that's what Trump said when he walked down that escalator that day was, they're not, everybody that's coming over ain't good people. They're sending some bad hombres over here.
That's right.
you know?
Well, and let me add this, too, to kind of
They don't have to build tunnels anymore.
Right. Well, and to kind of go back to what we're saying about supporting the president or not, everyone who knows me knows I was not a Trump fan, nor was I a Biden fan. Like, when it came time, I just wrote somebody in because I have a hard time supporting someone who I don't feel like is a decent person. I also have a hard time supporting politics that I don't agree with. So to me, it was a draw.
Damned if you do.
Yeah, pretty much. But the truth of the matter is, years and years and years ago, when George W. Bush was president, right after 9/11, I joined this email list, and it was something about like presidential prayer team. And it was actually a website where you go and each day, you could read the prayers and you could post the prayers, and it had little articles and stuff, but praying for the president, whether you like him or not. Well, of course, Obama's elected. And at that point I was like, maybe these aren't my politics, but as a Christian, it's my duty. Jesus said, render unto Caesar what's Caesar's. So just pray for this president too. And that's something that is harder sometimes than others, but to pray for our leaders and to pray for the decisions they make. I mean, y'all just heard how I raised my voice when I talked about the job I think some of our politicians are doing. But I think that when we're in a situation like where we are looking at it and saying, how does this ever get better if this president succeeds? I think that's where the prayer of God's people comes in, because this is God's country.
I don't think you can tell people to put God in their lives and it makes a difference without doing it yourself.
Right.
No, I agree. It's just tough, man. You see what's going on, and you see taking God out of everything.
Yeah.
And
schools, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're having to say, well, pray. And I had to hear about what a Christian our president is from the party that wants to remove God from everything and, create this lawlessness. And it's okay for Russia to have energy independence, but we come in and we cut down the Keystone Pipeline. America can't, though. All these other countries can do whatever they want, and we support that, but America can't. I like America can, not America can't. And that's all I see here. It's like we're just running on this revenge politics platform of, let's rehash everything bad that's ever happened in America, and let's drag that back up to get this guy in office or get this guy out of office. I think it was really just a lot of Trump hate that got us to where we're at, more so than Biden love.
Yeah, I don't believe it was. I don't believe it was the individual that won. I believe it was just the negative.
Yeah, and I don't believe in just.
He didn't win on his own accolades.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say that Trump would be too toxic to run again. Like he gets Democrats more excited out of hatred,
correct,
than Republicans get fired up for him now.
Right.
That's why I think somebody like a DeSantis is probably your Make America Florida.
Right.
I think that's a guy that I know I can personally get excited about because I see the leadership that he put forth in during COVID and stuff during Florida, and saying, no, we're going to do this. Greg Abbott in Texas, same way.
Well, I think these governors, including our own, COVID, that was an animal they never dealt with.
Yeah.
None of us had. The Spanish flu was in the 20s. So nobody's around remembered any of that.
Mm-hmm. No.
So even Governor Reeves, he didn't inherit it. It hit by the time he took office, and I have to say, with what he was handed, I can't complain with the job he's done.
Yeah, it's easy for a guy like me to get up here and bash a lot of what he does, and I haven't been a fan of some of it. But to hear somebody like you who's in the public service side of things to say that you are happy with the way it goes, that carries a lot of weight with me.
Right.
I trust you, and if you say that he did a better job than what the public may perceive, I'm going to take your word at that.
Right. Well, and that's coming from a standpoint to where with my guys, I have to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And for the state, I think Governor Reeves has to be the bad guy. Yeah, no matter what he does, there'll be a fault. But I admire his stance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he didn't have to go on TV every day. He didn't have to take those questions, and he did.
All right, look, we got to take a break here on the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back here on 103.9 WYAB. All right, welcome back to the Clay Edwards Show here on 103.9 WYAB. I'm joined today by Darkhorse Press very own Therese Apel, and Pearl Police Chief Dean Scott is in studio with us. Let's reset a little bit, kind of cleanse our political palate there.
Yes.
I was driving through Pearl. I guess it would have been Saturday night. I work on Saturdays, so I got off around 5. I'm heading east, and I see a car pulled over with a flat tire right before you get to the Pearl exit there. And what else do I see? A Pearl police unit helping change a flat.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like mentioning it every time you see a cop doing something good, but god dang it, people are so quick to say anytime they see something shady, they want to talk about it. Right. So I just wanted to say, I've been sitting on this one. I've been wanting to say, man, good job to you guys, man. I don't know who it was. I honked the horn at them. You know?
You'd be surprised. Monday mornings, yesterday was my first day back after a week, and I spend the bulk of the morning going through phone messages, going through messages from the weekend, and it's very humbling. I work for those guys. All I am is their face. I'm the filter that tries to interject or give accolades. But it is not uncommon at all on Monday mornings for me to have, anywhere from one to a half dozen, thanking officers, like you said, changing a tire. I had one a couple weeks ago. A lady broke down. The officer didn't even know what was going on. Took her to she was very upset. Unbeknownst to my officer, she had a family member that had passed, and she was trying to catch the plane. Rental car died, so he took her to the airport, made sure got the rental car back to the airport for her. And that stuff goes a long way. That's the stuff you never hear. You're never going to hear that on Fox News. You're never going to hear that on CNN. You're always going to get the beat-up stories. And I know that's very minor in a national scale, but it's really not, because that happens every day with every police department or sheriff's office in this country.
Community policing.
Correct.
It's building a relationship.
Well, it's just being a person.
Yeah.
Everybody has bad days, and that's the one thing that we have tried to, myself and my captain and my supervisors, and I've got a great, I've got guys from 21 to 61, working, and those guys really, they take a lot of pride in what they do. We talked about COVID off the air. We didn't stop working during COVID. Our call volume went up tremendously, and
what did you see a spike in?
Domestics.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
You saw a spike in domestics because what happened, people out of work, people home 24 hours a day. Your average family's going to spend 2 to 3 hours a day together at night. Well, all of a sudden they're thrust into 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And we were having domestics at 7 in the morning because in that it's kind of like you lose track of time, you stay up late, you're not on a schedule anymore. So nights become days, days become nights. And just, like we talked about, alcohol sales in the state were higher than they've ever been during COVID. And that's just a mixture for disaster.
And you can tell us from 30 years of law enforcement experience that it's the domestic calls are the most unpredictable, scariest ones y'all get, correct?
Oh, without a doubt. And Therese can tell you that is the most dangerous call that any police officer can go on, because the whole family the reason you're there will turn on you also.
Yeah.
The victim will turn on you also. And it becomes one of the first domestics I ever went on years and years ago. As a kid, as a young officer, I go in, and this woman had been beaten, severely in South Jackson on Raymond Road. And dealing with it actually turned in a fight with the husband. And as he and I are struggling, luckily I had on a vest. She stuck me in the vest with a knife.
Now
it just changes in a second.
You were on another call, and we talked about this last time you were here. You had a friend get shot. What was that? Was that a domestic call too out there in North Jackson?
Yes, it was. He had responded. That was his third time to respond to the call, and he had told him if I have to come back, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
And he unfortunately, he was waiting on him. And Therese, I think, even covered that when Brian got killed back then.
Yes, yeah. And, one of the things that several years ago when I started really researching gangs, and you and I have talked about that before, but there was a police officer that was killed, and this is when I was still at the Clarion Ledger, and I don't remember which one it was, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back through all the police killings in Mississippi, and I got on Officer Down Memorial page, and I was looking for like what it was that got them killed. Because in my head, it's like, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on out there on the streets, and a lot of it's probably attributable to gangs. Well, as I looked, the majority of them were in the commission, or, you know, as they were going to assist with a domestic situation. As a former firefighter and first responder, I know there were times that, you know, we had to stage until the police got there to make sure, because that is literally, I mean, you think about fights you've had with your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you know, that kind of thing. You know, I've been in an abusive relationship, and I know what it's like when all those emotions are going and somebody tries to step in. What do you do? It's like, no, this isn't your problem. Even if you're the one that called him, like, stop, don't hurt him. It's something that I think about every time, because the other day I was looking at a particular agency at their jail, and like 90% of the calls they had were domestics. And all I could think was, God, I pray for their officers. You know?
And I think the best act of the legislature that they've ever done, of course it was, you know, during my time, or at the beginning of my career, is when they gave the officer the power to sign the domestic charges, because what was happening prior to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They would, you know, of course they would sign, and then they would come, you know, and domestic and arrest affects the family dynamic so much, financially, you know, oh, how am I going to pay my bills? And it wears on their mind, and there really were no victim services at that time, and Therese can attest to that. But they gave us the power to where if we see where, you know, if there's no evidence, well, granted, our hands are tied, but if we see a scrape, if we see anything, if we see broken furniture, broken lamp, it gives us the authority to sign the charges. So, you know, at that point, we become the bad guy. You know, hey, I don't have a choice in this. And it's good and bad, because if the officer is lazy in his work and he doesn't take action, then at that point, he and the department become liable. But I will say that as far as that crime, I can't tell you a law enforcement officer that takes that lightly and doesn't take it to heart.
They go in there on their P's and Q's.
Well, they go in on P's and Q's, but they also they take action. Mm-hmm. They don't, they don't HBO the call, handle by officer and just leave. They actually take action, because first of all, if they have to come back, it's going to be worse. And then if somebody gets hurt, then that's something that officer has to live with.
Yeah.
And you pretty much got to have no conscience to.
And this goes
okay
back
with that.
This goes back to what we talked about during your last appearance here, was the stresses that police deal with in just the day-to-day life, and trying to go home and balance the stress from work with the home life, and having to try to shut off what they've seen. Right. If you're staying on a high stress level, going to more domestic calls, because the dangers of a domestic call, and if you're getting 10 times more domestic calls, what that does to your stress levels, your heart, everything else, and the trickle-down effect.
But it does.
From a year of that.
And with police officers and deputies especially, or any law enforcement officer that, and I say deputies and because that's your boots on the ground guys. Fed guys' jobs, hey, they are dangerous. But the guys that do it every day, that are boots on the ground, the guys you see in the cars that are interacting with the people every day, those are the ones that and it's sad to say, because at a point in my career, I was a victim of it also. You take it home. Alcohol abuse among law enforcement is very high. Mm-hmm. Therese can attest to that. Mm-hmm. Some of her stories she's done. Injuries caused by officers. Getting substance abuse, prescription pills, that's bad. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, years ago, hey, be a man. But now there's help these guys can go to, and the divorce rate among law enforcement, astronomical.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and you mentioned the help. I actually am a member of Law Enforcement Alliance for Peer Support.
Right.
And that's they allowed me to do it as a firefighter, and there's a long story behind that. But to me, groups like that say, look, dude, I see you. I get it. You're not somebody that slaps your wife in the face, but you did it last night. And it's because of all the stuff you deal with on a regular. You're not somebody who drinks yourself into a stupor, but you did it last night. And it's that human touch that says you go through a lot, and we're here to help you and to understand you, not to be like, but you're a cop. You shouldn't be, you should be held to a higher standard. Agreed. Cops should be held to a higher standard, but we also need to keep in mind just the absolute humanity that is out there that they see every day.
Well, and I said that last story, we are held to a higher standard, but we are people too, and it's not natural to see the things that we're, now we signed up for it, that we do see, the injuries to children, the abuse of children, the abuse to elderly. It's hard for me, anything with a child, being a father of a special needs child, it's hard for me to deal with that. And I'm fortunate because I got a good captain, and if it's something pertaining to that, she'll call me when I'm on the way. Don't come here.
Yeah.
She knows me that well. But, I had a talking about the help and talking just in this circle. I had a retired officer, great guy, and I'll call his name because I got the utmost respect. Benny Bennett told me years ago. He worked for Jackson. He was a detective. Actually had a role in a couple movies, based off some of the events in his career.
I want to say, I think I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Lives in Rankin County now. Like all of us, getting a little older, But I get the opportunity to talk to him every now and then, and he told me something a long time ago when I was dealing with an incident. He talked to me about it. He said, "I've been through it. I know." And we sat talking about old stuff. We sat at Angelo's restaurant and talked about it one day. And he said, if you've got an issue in this line of work, talk to somebody that's been through it, because somebody that hadn't, they're going to tell you, hugs make it all better. No, it don't.
Yeah.
If you can talk to somebody that's been through it and overcome it, then life can get back to normal.
Absolutely.
I always tell my guys when they're involved in something, like we did last time, I always let them know, you're not going to sleep tonight. Mm-hmm. And I'll see them the next day. You're right.
Hey, look, man, I came out of our last interview with that whole police week thing we did here, and I came out of that, and I've tried to, anytime I'm having a bad day, I try to think about exactly what we talked about, and like, my day's bad, but it could be a lot worse. Therese, we're about to go to the break, but on the other side of the break, I want to talk about your ride-alongs that you're doing with the introduction team, and kind of talk about that a little bit and the stories you hope to tell.
Sure.
You're listening to The Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB.
Our ticket writing effort.
Welcome back to the Clay Edwards Show here on 103.9 WYAB. I am broadcasting live in the Generator Power Solutions studio, and this segment is brought to you by Coleman Taylor Transmission right there in Jackson. They excel in automatic and manual transmission, reconditioning, and remanufacturing, import or domestic. They have financing options available, and at Coleman Taylor, they provide a free transmission inspection with no obligation and no disassembly. They offer free towing on major repairs, and they confidently offer a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty. They are dedicated to making their customers informed, comfortable, and completely satisfied. Give Flint and his team a call today at 601-355-8526 or ColemanTaylorJacksonMS.com. As always, I'm joined by Therese Apel and Dean Scott today. Therese.
Yes.
So we're going to break, and I wanted to make sure that we got a chance to talk to you about your ride-alongs that you're doing.
Yes.
Bring us up to date. Anything new on that end?
Well, basically, I started the ride-alongs this last week. And for those of you that aren't, familiar with the project, which, I haven't talked about it just a whole lot, but I'm riding with the Rankin-Madison County Interdiction Unit. And the thing about them is that they are pretty consistently ranked among the best interdiction units in the nation. So you've got the departments across I-20 basically that are working these things, and I-55. So I've ridden with them a couple times this week. Basically sitting on the road, they're teaching me what they look for, how they get their intelligence, that kind of thing. And you see that their job is not just to sit on the road and wait for a big old truck to come by and, bust it out. And there's cartel drugs in the back, but it's very much, I mean, it's like a different kind of road officer. So the other night we got a call for a home invasion, and we went to that too. Most of the guys on the team are SWAT members. So if there's a SWAT call, we'll go to that kind of thing. But what it does is it's very much like a series I did with Jackson Police Department a few years ago, basically just showing a day in the life, you know, and it'll be like a Cops Live PD type feel. You know, this is me following you with a camera. This is me seeing everything that you see. And basically giving that view of those officers interacting, you know, you can see what it's really like. And the thing is, some people would say, well, they're different because there's a camera there. And for a moment, yes, that is true. But I know with Jackson Police Department, to this day, they still make fun of some of the stuff that happened in front of the camera, you know, just silliness and whatever. And they're always like, we forgot you were there. Once you've been embedded long enough, they really just are themselves. And that's what I find to be the most important part, is for people to see, as we were just discussing in a case that Pearl had one time, to be front row for the righteous anger these guys felt. And the you can't even describe the feeling when they were bringing in this child rapist that they had arrested. And you just knew that you were in the presence of what justice really is, you know, to see that.
Physically caught him in the act.
Right.
I mean, to be the front line, to have to see that and to rationalize that and live with that, you know, that us normies can't comprehend what was seen that day.
Right. But there is a feeling in the air when justice has been done, when God has worked through, you know, his people. And that was something that, you know, I want to show those kind of things, but I also want to show, like, there was an episode in my JPD series that starts off with Anthony Fox eating a gas station pickle, talking about how good it is, and, you know, just the silly everyday stuff too. Because
you've got a feel-good story coming up on your series too. It's not all kicking down doors and and stuff. So it goes back to showing the good side of things.
Exactly. We had a situation where an officer definitely went above and beyond in a place that a lot wouldn't have, possibly because of political ramifications. So
yeah, you know, you said the word embedded. That's a good name for your show. Mm-hmm. Embedded.
Oh, it
with
is.
Therese Apel.
I hadn't thought. We haven't named it yet. So
well, you have to give her accolades, because in a time, in a society where we are right now, those shows, as you know, have been took off the air.
Yeah.
They have. Cops has been took off the air. Live PD, you know, they've gone to a courtroom series.
Mm-hmm.
But those shows have been, you know, banned, if you will.
Ridiculous.
And it's like we talked about earlier. It's just, you know, the politics involved. It makes you sick.
Live PD. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and Live PD was her favorite show.
A lot of people's favorite show.
And I mean, she's getting into law enforcement because that show influenced her to want to get into law enforcement or criminal justice or whatnot. Where it goes, I'm not sure. But we were coming back from the coast one time, and we came up. Was it up 12 and then up 55? Or was it up 10 and up 55 instead of coming up 49 because of flooding?
Right.
And we had to ride through that little town that they were filming down in Louisiana.
Right.
It's like, this is the McDonald's that they're at. This is this. But it showed that the influence in young minds, and not all negatively. Like, it made my daughter want to be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, the other thing is, you know, there's a prominent national newspaper, and their slogan is "Democracy dies in darkness." Now, regardless of what you feel about that particular media outlet, I feel that is true. Things die in the dark, and so when you can take away any exposure that you have to what's actually going on in the streets, then what you're doing is feeding the ability to pretend that it doesn't exist, that these men and women aren't putting their lives on the line, that they aren't actual humans. We can build them into these robo-cops with no emotions as long as we're not seeing them actually have to have them. Right. So to me, it's not just about the emotions. I mean, that gets too touchy-feely for a lot of people, but it's about, you know, you watch this process, maybe you understand it a little bit better.
Yeah. You know, I want to make sure I give you props, Therese, because you're going against the grain. And when media...
And that's what I wanted to just make sure.
Absolutely. With media being, I'm just going to say it, with media taking a very anti-cop stance for you to branch out on your own, roll the dice and risk it all to be authentically you is very commendable. That's why, you know, I'll die on that hill fighting for you.
Thank you.
Well, and I think she said it best a while ago. You can make a whole blooper reel out of one shift.
Yeah.
With a police department or a sheriff's office. I mean, they're human, cut up, and they have to. You know, cops have a very warped sense of humor because of what they're exposed to over a period of time.
Yeah.
But just like him eating in a convenience store, 2 minutes later, he could be in a fight for his life.
Yep.
It's not like, well, the line shut down at Nissan.
Well, if it's a convenient, if it's a gas station in Jackson, he probably was.
Yeah.
We did have a pretty interesting call later on that night. It starts off with a pickle. It ends up with a carjacked vehicle and a police chase.
But it goes. It literally goes from 0 to 100 with one radio call.
Yeah.
All right, look, man, we're going to take a last quick break here and then come back and say our goodbyes. Y'all are listening to the Clay Edwards Show. I've got Therese Apel and Dean Scott in studio with me. We'll be right back. Clay Edwards Show. This last segment is brought to you by Ed Means Legacy Garage right out there in Pearl. If you're looking for a real deal detail, show quality, you want to give Legacy Garage a call. 601-941-5312, or just stop in and see Ed at 1039 Commercial Park Drive. They do the ceramic coating with up to a 5-year guarantee. We're about to get my wife's car done. I'm going to make a video about it just to show you guys exactly what it is. So stay tuned to the Save Jackson Facebook page for that. But in the meantime, if you need your car detailed, waxed, the real deal, if you're getting ready to go to Scraping the Coast this weekend, give Legacy Garage a call, 601-941-5312. All right, Dean, something I wanted to ask you about before we wrap up here is over in Pearl, you guys are clearly doing something right. There's something
we're trying to.
There's something either in or not in the water in Pearl.
But we have water.
Yeah, but you have water, and so something's going right. You guys are providing 4 times the assessments to Crime Stoppers based on the amount of tickets y'all are writing.
Correct. We have a traffic unit. We also we're operating under a traffic grant at this time, which allows officers to get overtime. So what I've done is, I've done, and my staff have done, have encouraged them to work and then get that, and the numbers that they're producing are pretty overwhelming.
When your guys are allowed to work overtime, are you? I know it's working more, but are you seeing a happier team when that paycheck shows up and they make more money? And
I think so.
They have a trickle down effect.
It does, and I think the ability to, even though it's overtime, but to work at one place and not have to find. There's no police officer or deputy that works one job.
Yeah,
never have. I don't. Everybody's always had a side job that when you go in, that's just part of it.
Well, in Jackson, it was working at bars.
Correct.
Yeah.
Security at different places.
Yeah.
Pearl, we offer the same thing, movie theater, baseball park, what have you. But I think the ability to work at one place, see your efforts on your real paycheck, and know that financial benefit is also going toward your retirement.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. And like you said, it's a trickle-down effect.
Quality of life.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And, most guys that are, you always got that sour face guy, but most guys that do this job enjoy doing it. Well, hey, if I get to do it and I don't have to sit and babysit kids or babysit drunks and I get to keep doing police work, but, it's making a difference in the community that I work in, I think it's a positive reflection.
I like it.
And I think it shows.
Look, we got about 30 seconds left. Therese, where can everybody find you? What you got going on today?
Darkhorsepressnow.com is our website. Of course, we're on all the social medias. Today I've got a special story about some firefighters that rescued some family pets. So you'll want to check that out.
Awesome. Look, if y'all missed any of the show, just go search The Clay Edwards Show anywhere you download music or podcast. I appreciate Pearl Police Chief Dean Scott and Therese Apel joining me today, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow at 7 a.m. as The Clay Edwards Show discusses all that is going on in and around the city of Jackson.
This concludes our broadcast day.
Right here on 103.9 WYAB.